Hey, Toro, greeting you once again on this beautiful Sunday morning. It's a beautiful day in my consciousness. God bless you all. Today, we're going to touch on a topic which to me is fascinating. I'm titled it Exaltation of the Cross. And what we observe is that a symbol in Jesus' time of pain and torture and death, which was the cross, is today used by Christians as a symbol of hope, faith, and new life or resurrection. So there was this incredible transformation that happened. And so I'd like to explore with you today how this happened and what meaning that could have for us in our life. And so before we begin, just invite you to please hit that like button, subscribe so you stay tuned in to the inspiration and the spiritual upliftment of this channel. And we accept gratefully and lovingly your donations. In the description of the message today, you'll see a link to PayPal, which will lovingly receive your donations. So let's jump into this idea of transformation. And what I'm going to use today is this incredible story from the Old Testament in which the people of Israel were in the desert, guided by Moses, and they had a situation come up. Let me read you the story. I'm going to read from Numbers 21, 4 through 9, and here's what it says. It says, with their patience worn out by the journey, the people complained against God and Moses. They said, why have you brought us up from Egypt to die in the desert where there is no food or water? We are disgusted with this wretched food. In punishment, the Lord sent among the people serpents, which beat the people, so that many of them died. Then the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned in complaining against the Lord and you. Pray the Lord to take the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people, and the Lord said to Moses, make a seraph and mount it on a pole, and if any who have been bitten look back at it, they will live. Moses accordingly made a bronze serpent and mounted it on a pole, and whenever anyone who had been bitten by the serpent looked at the bronze serpent, he or she lived. This is a fantastic story for us today. It really helps us understand how this symbol of pain and death, which was the venomous serpents that apparently the Lord sent among the people, is transformed into a symbol of healing and hope and new life. Exactly like the cross, right? So we want to understand how this happened. Well, let's look at the story. The people began complaining, right? Oh, why did you take us out of Egypt? There's no water, there's no food. We're sick and tired of this food. And apparently, because of that complaint, the Lord sent punishment among the people, right? He punished them with some poisonous snakes that bit them, and some of them died. Well, you know, when we read the Bible metaphysically, we have to understand that everything, every character, every situation that happens in the Bible is representative of something within us. We're never victims of the world, always consciously express. And so in this story, every representative, including the presence of God, is represented somewhere inside of us. So the question we need to ask ourselves is how this punishment that apparently was given by God, how does that come up in our lives? Well, you may have heard this man Elbert Hubbard said once upon a time, we are not punished for our sins, but we are punished by them. We're not punished for our sins, but we're punished by them. What this says is that when we commit an error, we have a sin, right? Something we did was not the most positive thing. And it not necessarily have to be an action, it could be a thought, could be just an emotion, right? When we participate in that, the consequences that we receive is not coming from the outside, but it's coming from something inside of ourselves. When we do something that is a mistake, we tend to feel guilty. And when we feel guilt, that energy, that emotional energy within us will attract to itself like situations of negativity. And so this negativity is brought to us, is attracted to us through the expression of our own guilt. Like energy attracts like energy. So guilt basically is an emotion that says, I deserve to be punished. And when we hold an emotion like that within us, guess what? We punish ourselves. We punish ourselves. So we see here in the story that this is exactly what happened. The people of Israel started complaining. Oh, there's no food, there's no water. Why didn't you bring us out of Egypt? All this complaining, negativity. Suddenly they're being bitten by poisonous snakes and they say, oy vey, right? They say, hey, we don't like this. We realize that we've made an error. We've committed a sin. So please help us, right? They take to Moses and to God. And this is a tremendous opening. I remember when many years ago when I was going through a divorce, I, among other things, right? I started hitting my wedding ring finger on everything. It was, the poor finger was hit so many times. Of the 10 digits that I have, this one finger, the ring finger, was getting mashed and hit, and I was bumping it against everything. It got really swollen and very painful. Now, it doesn't take a doctorate in metaphysics to understand what was going on there. Obviously, I was feeling guilty about the divorce. And it wasn't that, somebody, I wasn't a victim of anything. I was beginning to hurt myself in the very symbol of matrimony, which is that finger. So this was a very obvious situation. And so let's see in the story what the people of Israel did. What they did is they realized they'd made a mistake. And they said, oh my gosh, we need to change this. Let's go and ask for help. Right? Asking, it puts us in a different vibration. We come to realize that we've committed a mistake, and we realize I don't have an answer. I don't like what's happening, but I don't have an answer. I'm going to be open. I'm going to be a little more vulnerable. I'm going to be, a little bit more humble, a little humility here. So I'm going to go ask for help. And very interesting, what is the solution? What was the resolution of the situation? Well, they take the very same symbol of what was pain and death, which was the serpent. They make a bronze image and they put it up on a pole so that people had to look up. In other words, they had to change their perception. They had to see it differently, right? And if you looked at the serpent, when you got bit, you wouldn't die. This is fantastic metaphysics for us because it tells us how, if we can change our perception, that which we believe is really castigating us, punishing us, can be transformed into an instrument of healing, faith, new life. So let's look at the process that the people of Israel have demonstrated to us in this story. It's really fantastic. The first thing, like I said before, is to see yourself. What guilt are you feeling? Are you feeling guilty? Right? This is important because that guilt, once again, is going to attract to it. It's an emotion that says, I deserve to be punished. And so it's going to attract punishment to you. In my case, it was the finger, right? So that is the very first part. Also, the idea that when I come to that resolution or to that understanding, I can do something different. And then what do? Ask. They came and they asked Moses, please pray to God. Please pray so that the situation can be changed. Right? Again, that puts us in a very open space, humble space. there's got to be some change here. I'm going to ask for help. And then notice what they needed to do. They needed to be willing to raise their eyes up to the top of the pole to see that bronze serpent. This is action, right? And they needed to be willing to do that. What are they doing? Symbolically, they're raising their eyes from the level of the problem to another level, a higher level, a divine level, so that they wouldn't have to go through that negativity. This is a willingness with faith, right? This is an action that says, if I engage in this, I'm going to help myself. It's going to help me, come up. So look up. And then the fourth thing that's very important here is that as they looked up and they saw that bronze serpent inside of themselves, they were basically declaring, this venomous snake has no power over me. Even if it bites me, it's not going to hurt me. It has no power over me. Very important, because that's the healing, that's the transformation, that's the great hope that we have. And so, of course, in my life, right, like I say, it doesn't take a doctor of metaphysics to see that this poor swollen finger has to do with the guilt I was feeling about the divorce. Well, I asked for help. I don't know what to do about this. I feel it. What can I do? In asking that question, right, I was guided to seek some therapy. And actually, it's so perfect. Life is so perfect. I wasn't given one therapist. I was given two. I was attending 2 therapy sessions a week, 2 different, beautiful, fantastic women who were helping me in different ways to come into an understanding of what was going on in my life so that I could understand the situation, and inviting me to take that next step that we're talking about today, to be willing to see it differently, to see it as a possibility of new life, to let go of the guilt. And eventually I came into that very powerful place, which basically says, this divorce, this guilt that I feel about the divorce has no power over me. That's liberation. But I had to look at it directly. I had to work with it, asking, being willing. Dear friends, we are not victims of the world. Life is consciousness, and consciousness is life. Now, the Course in Miracles says that all of us have this deep-seated guilt within us, and I believe this. Says that Course in Miracles says it's like an iceberg where we see only the tip, or we may feel only the tip of the guilt that we may have below the surface, which is this huge piece of ice. Nevertheless, every time guilt comes up in our life and we take some positive action to change the perception, to raise our vibration, to ask, to be willing, to declare it has no power over us, we're chipping at that iceberg. We're chipping away at it. And it's making us more free. Right? We come into a greater understanding of new life. We're not victims of the world. And so I'm inviting you today to take a look at yourself and your life, to feel if there is some guilt going on inside of you, right? And to know that whatever it is, however it's showing up, first of all, you're not a victim. And there is the possibility of change, of transformation, of healing. And the very instrument that seems to be causing you that guilt can be an instrument of healing and of hope and of faith and of new life, right? Just like the children of Israel. They realized they'd made a mistake. They asked for help. They're willing to change. They're declaring, this has no power over me. This is the same lesson that Jesus taught us on the cross. He took that instrument of pain and torture and death and basically declares, this cross has no power over me. He rose on the 3rd day. He says not even death has power over us. And so this is the demonstration in our own life that we can exalt that which seems to be punishing us. Exaltation of the cross is that celebration. We're not victims. And we have the possibility of transformation in our life. It's a beautiful and a marvelous way to live and to be. So, just remind you once again, hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel. We're bringing you weekly message and reflections, having that memory of God together. The donate button is in the comments below. And I'll just remind you once again, Juan Enrique Toro reminding you, as I always do, that life is consciousness and consciousness is life.